Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, a free site, bettingangle.us, a free site. Let's talk boxing. It's the day of the fight. Um, Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Well, there is a underdog here that I like today. It's going to be a light bet, because this is a big underdog. I'm not talking about a plus 150 or a plus 200 or a plus 250 or even a plus 300 or even a plus 400. This is a plus 450 underdog, veteran fighter, Gabe Rosado. Right? Gabe Rosado. What I want people to do is to look at the quality of the opposition he has fought of late. Understand that this is a guy who has been in the ring with some of the best. Right? Think Peter Quillen, who he got stopped by. Think Jermell Charlo. Think David Lemieux. Think Joshua Clottey. Think Danny Jacobs. Now, the Jacobs fight was 2 fights ago. That's Rosado's last loss. Folks, that fight in November of 2020, a year ago, was razor close. Right? Rosado is at the point in his career, and this is a puncher. He's at the point in his career where he has figured out how to improve his defense, how to counterpunch, how to not panic when he's backed up against the ropes, as he was in his last fight against Melikuziev, who he dropped dramatically off a punch where he was pinned against the ropes. I believe Rosado is exactly the kind of fighter you should circle, because this is a guy who has the punch. He only has to be right once. He has the punch to upset people. I understand. I'm going to get feedback from this. People are going to say, you got to be kidding. Dwyer, this guy has lost more than 10 times. This guy's knockout percentage is not that high. If you watch the fights, you know this guy has the punch. Right? The odds of him pulling an upset are much greater than a non-puncher. Right? Because a non-puncher can outbox you one round. Right? He can have one brilliant round. Then, of course, the next round starts at 0-0. In other words, he has to outbox you a majority of the rounds. By contrast, a puncher just has to have one spectacular round to win the fight, or at least to materially change the fight so that his opponent is weakened and can't do much. I believe Rosado has that punch. Now, Munguia, unbeaten. If you looked at this fight on paper, Munguia's record is spectacular. And, of course, Munguia has beaten people like Saddam Ali, right? Liam Smith. But Munguia is a guy with defensive lapses. While he's a big-time puncher and while he's an extreme mid-range hooker, right? Understand, Munguia comes in, he's throwing a lot of hooks to take you out. He imposes his offense on you. What you're noticing, though, is that Munguia doesn't have a lot of defense. He's completely naked after throwing some punches. Now, against the right opponent, this doesn't matter, because Munguia's punch is so heavy that he's able to just outpunch you. He can trade punches with you and have the advantage because his punches are harder. Right? But that doesn't work against a guy who's a cagey vet who can counterpunch like Gabe Rosado. Right? Also, Rosado's defense is vastly better than you remember it. Understand, Rosado goes the distance with Danny Jacobs, for example. Right? He's a guy now at this age who understands he has to cover himself up. Now, don't get me wrong. The unbeaten Munguia should be the favorite in the fight, right? After all, Gabe Rosado's 35. When I say KG vet, I'm talking about a guy who's been around, right? He's been around long enough to have double-digit losses, right? Rosado's 35. He should be the underdog, but not at these odds, right? I believe against this opponent with this level of defensive shortcoming, I believe a slick power counterpuncher, right? Rosado can throw power shots as his counter, right? Just look at the Munguia fight. I believe Rosado has at least a 40% chance of winning this fight. In other words, he should be a plus 150, not a plus 450. I like the risk reward here. It's a light bet because I am taking a 35-year-old plus 450 underdog. But I like Gabe Rosado here on a light bet to give Munguia his first loss. Now let's be real here, because I know after the fight, if the favorite wins, and even I, just do the math, believe the favorite should have a 60% chance of winning. But if the favorite wins, I know I'm going to get a lot of yahoos here online saying, "Oh, Dwyer, you were wrong," and stuff like that. Folks, this is an odds play. I believe Rosado is going to have his moments. What I'm saying is if these guys fought 10 times, I believe Rosado would win 4 of the 10. He's priced as if he would only win once for every 5.5 fights. In other words, he's priced as winning less than 2 out of 10 fights. Right? Do the math. A plus 450 means that Munguia is supposed to win 4.5 fights for every fight that Rosado would win. So that's 1 out of 5.5 fights. These odds suggest that Rosado would only win 2 out of every 11 fights. That can't be the case when you're dealing with world-class fighters, right? Both of these guys are still world-class. And one of them has Munguia's defensive lapses. All Rosado has to do is have one great round where he lands one big counter, and the world will change. Right? Understand, too, between these two men, Rosado has fought the much tougher competition. I would argue that just his last 2 opponents, Munguia and Danny Jacobs, in my opinion, are better than anyone that Munguia has faced. Right? So Rosado has been in against tougher. Right? For the record, he loses to Jacobs. I thought that fight could have gone the other way. For the record, he KOs Munguia. Right? I believe Rosado is not going to be intimidated. I believe Munguia is going to come out and go for the KO. If you're on the Munguia side of the play, right, the hedge would be Munguia by stoppage. I believe Munguia is going to go for the KO. I believe Gabe Rosado is going to weather the storm. He's going to make a mental note. He's going to see the places where he can hit Munguia. He's going to figure out Munguia's pattern. Then he's going to take advantage. If he hurts Munguia, and Munguia has been hurt in some fights, if he hurts Munguia, I believe he stops Munguia. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Again, this is a light bet, right? The money for the mortgage, the rent, the kids' tuition, the family vacation, the Christmas presents. That's not the money you're playing with here, right? This is Saturday speculation money, right? This is a speculation. I like the plus 450 underdog, Gabe Rosado, hedged with the favorite, Munguia by KO. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Many people only bet when there's a big fight. I believe there's a lot of money to be made on fights like this. The information is imperfect. The press isn't obsessed with this fight like they are, let's say, a heavyweight title fight or a Canelo fight. If you have information that you want to share, right? One of these guys didn't look right at the weigh-in, right? By the way, I'll concede, David Benavidez looked like he starved himself to make the weigh-in yesterday in the Benavidez fight. I'm expecting Benavidez to win, but let's just say that weigh-in, he looked like he had been straight out of a sauna, right? If you have information on this fight, Rosado Munguia, right? You didn't like the way someone looked at the weigh-in. You have information about the guys sparring, right? You know about some secret injury. You think the referee is going to favor one of the fighters. You don't like the judges. Tell us about all that in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.